Good day, everyone. My name is Hesna Miller, and I have the privilege of hosting and chairing this beautiful, wonderful session today. I'm an educational leader and strategist focused on building systems that drive meaningful change in schools and leadership spaces. My work centers around developing people, strengthening organizations, and creating pathways for sustainable growth. Today's conversation sits at the heart of leadership itself. It's about mentorship, networks, and how we intentionally grow others while growing ourselves. So for me, a defining moment in my leadership journey was realizing that leadership is not about position, but about responsibility. Responsibility for people's growth, for outcomes, and for what we build in very high pressure and high stakes environment. Mentorship has been both a lifeline and a responsibility in my journey. I've seen firsthand how the right guidance can accelerate growth, and I'm deeply committed to creating spaces where others can rise with clarity and confidence. And before we begin the discussion today, I would really like to briefly set the tone and structure for our session. This is intended to be a thoughtful, honest, and experience-driven conversation. We are not here for formal speeches, but for real insight, practical reflections, and meaningful dialogue. We will begin with a short round of introductions from each of our panelists. And again, I say to them, thank you so much for your time. And I will ask each of you briefly to share your current role and area of expertise, a defining moment or experience in your leadership journey, and your connection to mentorship and leadership development. And from there, we will move into a guided discussion focusing on access to mentorship, the role of networks, and how we intentionally create opportunities for emerging women leaders, especially across Africa and the diaspora. To ground us in this purpose of the conversation today and the vision behind bringing this dialogue together, I would like to introduce Dr. Mudiwa, Dr. Precious Mudiwa, and I would also like her to share with us the aim of this webinar and the broader intention behind this initiative. Dr. Precious.
Thank you, Hesna. Thank you so very much for that warm introduction. I'm Precious Mudiwa, and I teach at Appalachian State University in North Carolina. I'm a professor of school administration, and I'm also the executive director of Women in Educational Leadership Symposium. So we have our symposium in October this year, and I hope you can join us from South Africa, or you can come here. So we are so excited about this opportunity today just to, share ideas. First of all, I just want to thank, EduPulse for reaching out and establishing this relationship with us. Mr. Benny Bandekele has been so gracious and for reaching out to us, and I thank him for those many email exchanges. And I want to thank my esteemed colleagues for being so very gracious with their time. They are very busy people, and they are committed to their work, and but they're here despite those busy schedules. So I want to thank my esteemed colleagues. These are women that are very accomplished. These are women that I adore. These are women that I respect, and they are my mentors too, and they're my support system over here in the US. So I am so grateful that they're here today. Well, the purpose of our meeting today is we are just on a fact-finding mission. It's a virtual exchange designed to just assess interest and lay the groundwork for potential future collaborations between our organization, Women in Educational Leadership Symposium, and EduPulse. And we hope we are going to establish a mentoring network connecting colleagues in the United States and South Africa. If there is enough interest, we hope to facilitate regular, virtual, and who knows, in-person mentoring engagements that promote the exchange of best practices in educational leadership. And we also hope with time we might develop mentoring frameworks and guidelines that ensure consistency, accountability, and measurable outcomes across both institutions. If the collaboration really works out, we hope to enhance collaborative research and academic innovation by integrating mentoring relationships into joint scholarly projects or initiatives. So I'll just stop here and I'll leave it back to you, Hesna. Thank you. You are muted, Hesna. You are muted, Hesna, you are muted.
Here we go. Thank you so much, Doctor. It is so exciting to be on the forefront of this and to be able to exchange views with one another. I want to, on that note, ask Dr. Leslie to give us a little bit of an introduction about herself, and from there onwards, we will also make sure that you get introduced to all the other panelists too. Dr. Leslie?
Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you. My name is Leslie Zeng. I am the Associate Provost and Chief of Staff to the Provost in the Office of Academic Affairs at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte here in North Carolina in the United States. University of North Carolina at Charlotte has about 30,000 students. We are a large I here at the university that are particularly success of students, crisis management, and strategic planning. I've been at the university for about 15 years and in higher education, all of you. So as I reflect on how mentorship has shaped my leadership journey, there are so many types of mentorship, and I'm sure we'll talk about all of them today, informal and formal. Mentorship relationships have really helped accelerate my leadership growth, helped me build confidence, and have helped enhance my career progression over the course of my career. And one recent mentorship example that was particularly meaningful to me was a participation in a formal mentorship program. And at that time, I was at this kind of pivotal moment in my career, and I was trying to balance some leadership transitions with some professional strategy. And I had a mentor who was a sitting university president, and she helped me be a mentor to think about some strategic career positioning and some structured reflection and some creative thinking about my career. And so, those are some ways in which, kind of a formal mentoring relationship was really helpful. But I think as we think practically about building mentoring relationships in education, we don't always have access to formal mentoring programs, but we do all have colleagues, right? And so we all can also have informal mentoring relationships. And one of my most important mentoring relationships is with a former colleague. And so that's one advice that I have, is to always look for colleagues that you have around you as well. But one key lesson for emerging leaders that I always like to share is to find that one thing that resonates with you or that you connect with, and to get involved and to show up, because decisions are made by those who are in the room and those who are at the table. So that is the one piece of advice that I always like to remind people about. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to share a little bit about myself, and I look forward to the conversation today.
Good. Dr. Leslie, that's quite profound. What you said is to, find the thing that you resonate with and actually show up. I think that there's a lot of discussion around things, but we also need to be able then to put that into action. Well said, well said. Thank you. Dr. Trish Johnson is about insight from the district leadership, Dr. Trish, and the role of mentorship in developing school leaders. If you can please just give us a little bit of your background as well. Dr. Trish.
Okay, I didn't know if you were waiting for me or not. I keep getting kicked out for some reason, and I've had to keep going. But thank you so much, first, Dr. Mudawafa, for having confidence in me and inviting me to participate, I think, in what I feel is going to be it's very promising and going to be a very productive, and I hope long-lasting and far-reaching effects for women in educational leadership. I'm Trish Johnson. I am retired. I worked as associate superintendent for the Caldwell County Schools before my retirement. After many, many years in different aspects, from assistant principalship to principal, from the classroom, and I can start back with my early experiences in education. And that was in 1979 or 78 when I went into the classroom. And I worked in 3 different schools over. We can do it. Let's do those things to change the world. So it says my internet is unstable, so I don't know what's going on. But I began to question, where are the women in educational leadership? And I started to look for them, because in looking for them, I was hoping that I would find that person who would be, I didn't know what it was at that point, but that person who would be my mentor, that person who would give me direction and give me insight. And it wasn't until I started, as I said, in 1978, it wasn't until 1987, that long before I had a female school leader. She was a principal. And I made my way immediately to her to say, this is what I want to do. And she took me immediately as her protege, as a mentor, and she gave me many opportunities. So I can say that in this leadership role, whenever we're in, no matter if it's in the classroom or if we're in administration, whatever our role is, it is always our opportunity to reach back and give back to another person. Sometimes people don't know how to ask. They're always watching you. And it's very important that we watch them as well, that we see potential in those who are seeking or looking for, or just those who are around us in whatever setting we're in, that we see the potential in them. And a mentor is one who can reach out and say, I see something in you. Would you like to go with me to this meeting? Would you like to sit in on this particular workshop? Or I am here. If you have any questions, just come to me with the questions. So mentoring starts off as for me it did, very informal. When I gave her my wishes and my desires, she said, I'm going to help you get to where you need to be, because I needed that help and I didn't have those role models in front of me. They're all men, and men lead in different ways. Nothing about men, but men lead just sometimes in different ways from women, and we just want to hear a woman's perspective. So I got my start with a mentor who helped me, and in fact, when I got my first assistant principalship, she was my principal. So it was wonderful being able to come back and work with her again in a different capacity. Even then, as in leadership roles, she was still mentoring me, and she even shared with me, you mentor me, because our leadership styles were very different. And so she gained things from me, so I was able, in fact, to mentor her as well. I spent a lot of time mentoring because I want to see people at levels, especially women, at levels where we are. So I enjoy. If there's anything that I can take away from mentoring, is that when we share our experiences, when we enable others to get to the table, if we can just get them in the room, they're going to be successful. We can help them to be successful. We touch generations that we will never see. It just doesn't stop with the person you're mentoring. It's going on to the students that they serve, the children and the families that they serve. So we're touching lots of lives that we may never see. And I love education. I love leading those in leadership. I love being a mentor. I had a mentor program for my teachers and principals when I was working in district leadership. So it's very important to me that we have someone that we can reach out to ask questions and to have that relationship. It may start as formal, but it surely ends up as a lasting friendship. You never forget those who lead you.
Amen, Dr. Trish. That is so profound. And what you said there is that we've got that openness to share, if we just get through that hurdle, that openness to share, you touch lives that, like you say, generations you will never actually see. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Kendall Hageman Mays, perspective on innovation, edtech, and leadership development in changing educational environments. Dr. Kendall, can you please tell us a little bit more about yourself and how mentorship influenced your life too?
I sure can. Thanks, Hesna. I appreciate that. And to Dr. Mudiwa for the invitation and to everyone else in the room. So again, I'm Dr. Kendall Hagman Mays. I'm currently serving as the Director of EdTech R&D at Digital Promise Global. There in my role, I work at the intersectionality and work specifically with researchers, with product developers, and with educators and practitioners to develop tools combining agency, purpose, curiosity, and connection. The idea is to empower learners for the future. I have been in the education and education policy space for right around 20 years. And my introduction to leadership development and to mentorship was through a formal leadership development program here in North Carolina called the Education Policy Fellowship Program. It is a national program out of the Institute for Educational Leadership in Washington, D.C. But I actually went through the program as a fellow in 2007 and 2008. And it opened my eyes to just how a thoughtful, formal program could be. But at the same time, it was really interesting because I was an employee at the organization, the nonprofit organization that was actually delivering the professional development. So the woman who was leading the program, her name was Joanne Norris, and she was already my professional mentor. And after going through the program, invited me to co-coordinate the program with her. So I quickly went from mentee and fellow to colleague and mentor, and worked for the next 6 years as a coordinator of the program and really saw what several of the other speakers spoke about is the lessons I gained by being a leader and a mentor. And it helps. It's almost like putting a mirror. It allows you to see yourself differently, but it just gives you such satisfaction in helping to develop others. And so that was my first introduction, but I kind of carried that through. I worked in consulting to bring leadership development to a high school community. And what I thought was a really interesting approach that we took there that I think schools can really kind of embrace is that in order to have educators really be able to embody the mentorship and leadership development that they're being given is to allow them and to help coach them into being mentors as well. So we actually worked with the teachers to understand how best to take the lessons we were instilling in them and pass that down to their high school students. So by the end of the year, we had every student in the school speaking the same language, all of the educators in the school building speaking that same language. And it really just elevated everybody in that space. We had cafeteria workers, we had the school resource officer. They were all speaking and embracing and holding each other to a higher standard as an individual and as a leader in some aspect in that school. So to me, that's that piece that I really took with me and continue to do, is that you have to meet that individual and their leadership and growth where they are. Identify where they are, where they've been, and where they want and need to be.
Yes, that's absolutely crucial. And I think what you said, they're speaking the same language and helping others to help others is such a big tool. Like Dr. Trish and Dr. Leslie also said, is that we need to reach back and we need to make sure that the people, you must find a place where you resonate and put those words into action. Thank you so much, Dr. Kendall. Dr. Betsy Rosenbaum has got insights from leadership preparation programs and mentoring emerging principles. Dr. Betsy, can you give us a little bit more information on that? Sounds quite interesting.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be here. And a special thank you to Dr. Precious Mudiwa, who was actually my professor 17 years ago when she came to our university at Appalachian State University when I was getting my school administration degree. And she mentored me as a professor and leader as I was finishing that degree. So this is a full circle moment to be here with her, also a proud colleague of hers. I am a clinical assistant professor in the school administration program at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. But prior to that, I've been at the university now for almost 10 years, serving in roles with the North Carolina New Teacher Support Program and also directing the North Carolina Principal Fellows Program, which is a scholarship program for those in our state who are looking to be school principals and receive full scholarships to do that MSA program here at our university. I've also been the director of the Public School Partnership here at Appalachian State, in which we have collaborated with 19 school districts around our university to provide resources and support for superintendents, leaders, and teachers. My public school years, I spent 17 years in public schools here in North Carolina prior to coming to the university. Serving as a teacher, an instructional coach, reading specialist, and a school administrator for 6 years prior to becoming what we call an EC director here in North Carolina, specializing in special education programming at the district level. So I've had some wonderful opportunities throughout my career to mentor others, but also be mentored both professionally and personally, both formally and informally. And I do agree that we are who we are in this profession of education because of the people who we surround ourselves with. We can learn by example, we can learn by non-example, but oftentimes true learning comes through reflection, and having folks in my corner to reflect with through my years has allowed me to grow, most importantly. I always try to position myself as the lead learner in any situation, humbling myself to the situation and knowing that I come into every class I teach, meeting that I run, committee that I join, needing to learn more about the situation, more about the people, and more about the context so that I can be a better servant in that situation. I strongly believe in servant leadership. I feel as a tool that I have used, and it sits well with who I am to enter into any leadership role in a servant leadership position. When I haven't known answers, I have found answers through serving others. When I have questions, I find the answers to those questions through reaching out in service and trying to understand more about the situation. So I really do feel like the best way I've been able to be responsive to others and organizations and collaborations is through serving. And that just has tended to serve me well, as I know that there's always more to learn about any situation. I do feel like throughout my experiences, it can be hard as a female and a young female to step into leadership roles when you know that you're willing to do the work and you're willing to put in the time, but you may not look like or sound like the person that may be up for the job or that may be considered for the job. So I think sometimes as females, we have to work a bit harder to show that we're willing to do the work. And that might mean saying yes. I believe my colleague here, Leslie, mentioned showing up and how showing up every time does pay off. So I do feel like it is a tool that we as women have to say yes to things as often as possible so that we can position ourselves to get the experiences. I don't feel like through the years it's served me well to say no or not it or I'll pass because every time I've said yes, I've learned from it. I have grown from that experience and I've met new people who, again, are everything in this journey, the people we meet. I have learned that sometimes mentoring and receiving mentoring can be disingenuous. Sometimes people are assigned to you as a mentor against their their will. Sometimes you are assigned to others, and I think that those things can grow into beautiful relationships. But trust is always important. So growing trust in a relationship is everything. I like to say that I have three main focuses. That's leadership, partnership, and relationships. Those three ships have helped me sail through this career, really embedding myself in those three things. But the older I get and the more I continue in this journey, I realize that, again, it's the people in the journey that have helped me to be who I am today. And I give them all the credit for what they've poured into me so that I can in turn pour into others. I do believe that women in our world have less advantages than others. I have tried to fill my family with international women as well. I have two children, two daughters who are adopted from other countries. If I could fill my house with more and more, I would, but I really want other women to have opportunities that we have had in this country, and I want to continue to advocate for women. I do feel like my vocation has become my advocation as well. Really just advocating for women, for education, for public education, for opportunities. And I will continue to do that as I continue my career, just making sure that everyone has an opportunity to experience an education through scholarship, through professional development, through mentoring, so that everyone has a chance at a better education and a better life experience. I will say, an important moment in leadership that I think maybe was just very helpful to me when I realized that in the end, we are all working for the betterment of children and education and a society and a community that is better. Oftentimes that can look competitive. And I realized that in working and all trying to do so many things and do them so well, that sometimes that can take away the joy in the journey. Because certainly competition can play a role in our careers. And so, one of my favorite quotes, and I'll just share this. When you compare yourself to others, you make excuses. But when you compare yourself to yourself, you make growth. And I really feel like that is important. I've always just tried to be a little bit better every day by listening, by serving, by engaging, by showing up, by saying yes, and really just wanting to grow as a person so that I can serve others better. It is always my favorite thing to do to work with young educators, young leaders. My current role allows me to mentor principals who are serving as mentors to our students in their internships. So sitting down with principals and talking to them about their journey is a wonderful opportunity just to provide support and encouragement. No matter if you've taught or led for 3 years or 30 years, it's always wonderful to have someone come alongside of you and provide encouragement and support and a listening ear. And so I always want to position myself as that learner, listener, and servant leader. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Betsy. And it is so profound what you said about servant leadership. I'm a very big advocate of that too, and I can see that even in the company that I'm working for at the moment and in EduPods. So the company that I'm with is EduNation Holdings, and servant leadership is one of the foundation blocks that we work from, and I think that's so important when it comes to mentorship. Thank you so much for your there. And then our soon-to-be doctor, Tamara Carter. She comes from the perspective of South Africa and the reflections on mentorship within diverse education systems, not only in schools, but also higher education. Tamara, please, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Thanks, Esna. Good day, everyone. Thank you for creating space for this very necessary conversation. I currently serve as the admissions director for Next Education Group in South Africa. Here we provide transnational postgraduate education opportunities for South Africans seeking international qualifications. My work sits at the intersection of higher education, business development, and leadership development. But my actual understanding of mentorship didn't begin in the executive space that I'm in now. It began quite a while ago when I was 21 years old, standing in a high school classroom, believing that leadership meant knowing everything. In my first 3 years of teaching, I didn't have a mentor. I had no senior colleagues to guide me. I had no one to sense check decisions with. And I equated asking for help as weakness. So I worked harder, I figured things out alone, and I made mistakes. At the time, I thought independence was strength. Looking back now, I see that without guidance, growth without guidance is possible, but it's unnecessary. If you have someone to guide you, why not make use of that? Extraordinary departmental head. She never formally announced that she was mentoring me, so there was no formal structure, no formal framework, but she saw potential in me and she chose to nurture it. She helped me navigate the new institutional culture. She modeled professionalism in quiet, consistent ways. She demonstrated fairness in difficult situations. And perhaps the most important part of the mentorship relationship that we had is that she showed me what it looks like to lead without a title. What stands out most years later, and especially in reflecting on and preparing for this, is not just what she taught me, but how she adjusted her leadership as I developed. Being a very young teacher at the time, she moved from directing me to collaborating with me, and then to stepping back and observing me lead. She entrusted me with responsibilities before I felt ready to lead. But she trusted me publicly, but privately would give her feedback and give her support. That experience shaped how I understood mentorship at the time. And when I realized that mentorship isn't about control, it's about helping someone grow into a capacity that they don't yet fully see themselves in. But as you might be aware, leadership journeys aren't particularly linear. So I moved from being a high school teacher and I transitioned into higher education, where I entered a far more competitive and complex environment. I was surrounded by very capable women, yet I didn't always experience solidarity from these women. There were moments when I experienced what's often referred to as Queen Bee syndrome, where women in leadership positions guard these spaces rather than create spaces for other women. I was regularly underestimated, labeled too ambitious, and I had to repeatedly prove my credibility. I had to work hard just to be invited to conversations. And like many professional women, I navigated these leadership expectations alongside motherhood. These seasons forced me to develop great resilience, but resilience alone is not the goal of leadership development. What shifted my trajectory again and my understanding of mentorship was when I was promoted to sales manager in higher education, and I worked very closely with our campus general manager. He, not she, became one of my most influential mentors in my career. Not because, again, it wasn't a formalized relationship, but because of how consistently he chose to invest in my growth. He expanded my thinking beyond my functional role, which was sales and business development. He helped me to understand institutional strategy from a broader perspective. And even when he disagreed with me, he supported my decisions publicly, which completely built my confidence and signaled his trust in me. And he was a very trusted person in the business. He demonstrated that leadership can be disciplined and human at the same time, and that you can be fair and firm, but still approachable and bring in some fun. And what I respect most about him is not just what he did for me while we worked together, it's what he continues to do although we no longer share the same reporting line, he still WhatsApps me and checks in with me regularly. He asks how I'm doing. And most importantly for me, he still brings my name into conversations where opportunities arise. And that distinction has profoundly shaped how I understand mentorship. Mentorship is seen as guidance, which shapes you on how to grow. But sponsorship is advocacy and shapes where you're able to go with that guidance. Sponsorship is when someone attaches their credibility to your name, and when they mention you in rooms that you're not yet in and open doors for you without being asked, that proves the value of such relationships. For many emerging leaders, especially, I'm going to say especially in Africa because this is obviously my context, it's not a lack of ability or even a lack of advice that slows progress. It's this lack of visible advocacy from mentors and from other people. When I reflect across my journey, I see that mentorship has done 5 things for me. It gave me confidence to transition between different phases of education. It expanded my strategic thinking so much. It exposed me to leadership behaviors that I could adapt into my own style. So both my mentors have very different ways in leading, and I've taken bits of them and made them my own. It's humanized leadership for me. It's not someone sitting in an ivory tower telling people what to do. It's being in the thick of it, being with the people, being with and understanding what the pain points are and seeing how best you can assist them with that. And importantly, it opened doors to me when I was not even in the room. Neither of my mentoring relationships were formally structured, and here is where I believe we need to evolve. Across Africa, talent is abundant. What remains uneven is structured access to mentorship, to networks, and to global perspectives. Many emerging women leaders struggle to not only because they are incapable, but they can't see what the next level looks like. There are fewer visible women leaders to model from, and sometimes, if we are honest, women in leadership do not always create space for others to rise alongside them, which is sad. That is why mentorship must become very intentional. It needs to be structured so access to a mentor is not dependent on proximity or geography. It should be seasonal, in my opinion, because growth requires new perspectives at different stages. I got what I needed from my first mentor. I used that. I leveled up. Her perspectives are different from my perspectives now, and my second mentor has taught me new things. And at some point, we might outgrow this relationship as well. It will just be a friendship. And also, a mentoring relationship, I believe, should be reciprocal because emerging leaders can also bring insight and innovation into a relationship. It's not hierarchical. I also believe that mentorship should be increasingly cross-sector and cross-border. Leadership principles transcend industries and geographies, and African leaders have much to offer global conversation, whilst global leaders can actually get some insights from our perspective that may also shape their leadership. As we advocate for structured mentorship, there is something practical each emerging leader can do now. If one encounters someone that you admire in a leadership position, ask them to mentor you. Don't assume that they know that you see them as a mentor. Don't wait to be selected, and don't wait until it's perfect time when you feel ready for this conversation. Do it, get it, figure it out, and get what you can from that relationship if the person is ready. And also, it feels good when you are asked to be a mentor as opposed to being assigned, as one of the previous panelists had mentioned. At the same time, I think we also need to recognize something really important, that even if you're not the CEO of a company, we are already influencing others in the way in which we currently lead. I've never mentored someone formally, but recently I have spoken to some of my previous colleagues, and I've received some messages randomly out of the blue from former team members, both men and women, who told me that they model their leadership approach on how I led them, with fairness, professionalism, consistency, high standards, leading by example, and working alongside the team rather than leading from above. These messages remind me that leadership often leaves a very lasting impression. Someone is watching how we handle pressure, how we treat people, and how we navigate disagreements. And that means that mentorship is not something that you just sit back and receive. It's something that you embody and you grow from as you move. So if you are an emerging leader, you aren't behind. There's no race. You're not too ambitious. No, I can tell you that you're too ambitious. You don't need to know everything. And I think that was a big lesson for me. And you don't need to navigate leadership alone. Seek a mentor who will stretch you and will build networks with you intentionally. And lastly, in closing, when you rise, Become the person who speaks someone else's name in rooms that they're not in yet. That is the biggest gift that you can give.
Well done, Tamara, absolutely. And I think where you said about the visible advocacy is so important. It takes less than a minute to mention someone's name. And also, I think I wrote it down where you said to help someone grow into a role that they actually didn't even know that they can actually work in, seeing someone's potential. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for this, Dr. Leslie, where you said that putting your action into the words, right? And where Dr. Trish said that to reach back. Sometimes people don't know how to ask. You must have the openness to share. Where Dr. Kendall said is that help them to help others, make them speak the language. Everybody speak the same language. Dr. Betsy, you spoke about servant leadership, also something very close to my heart. And Tamara again about the visible advocacy. We hear all of this. And if we look in the world around us, we can see that there is a challenge. So what in your view, and I'm opening this to the panel, is the biggest challenge or hurdle facing women today and also emerging leaders in the society that we find ourselves in? What is it? What can we practically, as this group that we just formed and working together across continents, what can we do sitting here and giving back to our emerging leaders in this absolute, if you think about it, it's a very unique situation where we found ourselves on this webinar. What is it that we can do and we can put back into the society?
I'm happy to start off, Hesna, if you'd like.
Sure.
I think I see it as two things. One, I see it as a very narrow or myopic focus of legacy. I think everyone, especially within education, in their heart wants to leave a legacy. And so a lot of times and in a lot of spaces, that means continuing to work and leave your mark on the world. And in a lot of ways, that means you're focusing on yourself, your own influence and impact on your specific work or field. And it's not thinking about the fact that a true legacy can be left by doing exactly what Dr. Trish and several of the others said, is reaching back and helping build up. Other than that, if we're not reaching back when it's time for us to step out of the light, there's nobody back behind us ready to kind of step in and fill that space. So I think it's looking more that legacy is not necessarily what we do, but whom we help to develop into those roles as well. I think that that's a bigger way. And then the second is, I think as women, it has taken so long to get us into these spaces of influence and leadership that oftentimes we're left competing against each other for these spaces, as opposed to really looking at the fact that we're here to support each other. And I think if we truly can understand and reframe it, that we're all on the same team and remove that competitive kind of vibe or feel, I think that will help now and in the future.
That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Especially, I think Tamara called it the Queen Bee syndrome that we so often met with. And as women, it sometimes becomes quite a race because we are not, we got where we are through a lot of hardship, and then you think, well, excuse me, no. And that's very wrong, because if we don't influence one another, if we don't help one another, one of you ladies said also that you touch generations that you will never actually even work with. You wouldn't know them. So it's so very important. Anyone else on the subject?
I think one of
If I
the
may contribute, I think that one thing we must do is to continue the conversations. This is an excellent conversation. It starts in a great place. It's always been conversation around mentoring, but I think someone said earlier, when you intentionally work towards these things, they seem to happen. And although we're moving forward today and we're just having a conversation starting with this group, I think it's important for us to try to get other women to join the conversation, whether it's in a large group or whether it's in a smaller group within our own particular environments where we work, where we find those people that we come in contact with. We've got to continue the conversation and preparing people to move forward and want to mentor. So I don't know how we get people, because I know we have all kinds of forums away from accepting the invitation. But I think we need to get people to the table, because once we get to the table, we can have those serious conversations. And I think one message that we must send clearly is mentoring is not an option. It is our responsibility. If someone helped us to move forward to where we are, and that's my reaching back. It's our responsibility to make sure that we help others, formally or informally.
That is so true, Dr. Trish. Absolutely. And it, like you said, it's our responsibility. It's not an if or when it needs to happen. Dr. I think it was Dr. Betsy. I saw your hand too.
Sure. I just wanted to also include the concept that we need encouragement. Everyone does in every career, but I think the professions that we choose and the work that we do has its own natural way of discouraging you on the daily basis, whether that be through political realms, lack of budget. We're all vying for the same resources and working against students in poverty and those things that we can't always control, but that we want to make a difference. And so mentoring by nature can be a way of finding a source of encouragement that we don't naturally receive in our professions. I can't tell you how many times as a new teacher support coach or as a principal mentor, I will go in and someone will say, "Thank you for asking me how I'm doing. No one's asked me how I'm doing in a really long time," you know? And so just bringing a positive sense of encouragement can be such currency in our professions. It can provide us with an additional sense of nourishment that we're not naturally receiving. And with that, also, I think the gift of perspective can be important, whether we are on this continent or another continent. The ability for us to sit with someone, whether it be virtually or face to face or on the phone, and say, let me help you zoom into that situation, but let me also help you zoom out and see that that might feel very intense right now or painful or hard, but on a grander scale, let's talk about how much bearing that should have on you, and like just giving folks perspective. Context, I will always say, is so important in any situation, understanding where someone's coming from and what they're going through. But also perspective is something that can be such a gift when someone truly helps you to see that this thing you're working on, going through, this hardship you're experiencing, in the grand scheme of things, can be very small, and you can get through this, and you have gotten through things of this nature and survived and been better because of it. So I think, again, just encouragement and perspective on a local or international scale can be quite the gifts when you are going through hard things. And so I love to provide those things for others and have benefited greatly when those things have been provided for me.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. Dr. Precious, I was wondering, I want to hear more from you when it comes to mentoring and where I can see that a lot of these ladies have an absolute, like, a beautiful respect for you in the way that you conduct things and the way that you mentored them. I would like to ask you to please give us a little bit of pearls of wisdom about mentorship.
I'm the one who has been mentored by these women. So I am just, here to say, from what Dr. Trish said, mentoring is not an option. We are all here. We are what we are because somebody invested in us. They took the interest in us. They took a lot of investment in terms of their time, in terms of their expertise. So what I would just say is, once we assume leadership positions, in my opinion, it is your duty to do the generative work where you are supposed to plow the path for others. And you are in that position to lift all the boats if you can, so that everyone has access to leadership. Leadership is very difficult for women to access, particularly in these high-powered institutions like higher education. Now, once they are there, it is, I think, when women are there, we don't want to do the imposter syndrome where we assume, leadership qualities of men and say, I'm here and I am going to do decision making probably in a way that is not democratic or whatever approach that you use. We want women to be who they are, be their authentic selves, and reach out to others and give back. This idea of the queen bee that was mentioned, I think it's unfortunate when that happens. What we want is leaders who are accessible, leaders who are approachable, leaders who want to help and give back. I think once we have women who are assuming that those roles and saying, I am here to give back, I am here to empower anybody who comes my way and help them develop who they want to become, I think we'll be in a better position. I always tell my students, when you are in a leadership position, you want to be a sponge. Just keep on absorbing and learning from others. Never say, oh, I'm tired. No. A sponge will always, absorb whatever it is. So I just want to believe that as women, like Dr. Trish said, it's not an option. We just have to help one another to grow. Many have been in the leadership positions for a very long time. We need to help one another so that there's parity in leadership positions at some point, in whatever institution that we might be. So I want to believe with creating spaces like this, I think today it was just a beautiful work of collaboration across continents, transnational. And I think we can start conversations that will help each other to grow. I hope there's something beautiful that is coming out from this initial conversation. Thank you so much for opening that up for us. Thank you so much, Esna and Benny. I thank you, my esteemed team. I think we have started a beautiful conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Precious. And like you said, it's our duty. And what a lovely duty it is, not. I mean, the best thing we can do is leave behind those experiences and all the things that we learned from and just make it better for the future. And we always say making it better for the future, but we must remember some of us are still going to be in that future. So we best help the others that come behind us to make sure that that future that we are in is also good. Thank you so much for those lovely words. It's unfortunate that our time has run out. So, Benny, you must make a plan. We can't just stop the conversation here. I want, just on that note, if I can ask each of our panelists, I know that our time is running out. We've got 2 minutes left. However, if you can sum up leadership in one word, and let's start with Dr. Leslie. Dr. Leslie, what does leadership mean to you in one word?
What I'm going to say, leadership is reciprocal.
Ah, beautiful. Well done. That's profound. Thank you, Dr. Leslie. Well done. And Dr. Trish, what would you say is your one word that describes leadership?
Empowering.
Oh, yes. Stunning. Beautiful. Dr. Kendall, what is your one word for leadership?
I'll say legacy.
Ah, yes, true that. Absolutely. Thank you. And Dr. Betsy?
I can think of several, but the first word that popped in my mind was listening. Just listening
Ah,
to the needs of everyone you lead. Listening.
stunning. Beautiful. And Dr. Precious?
I would just say leadership is service.
Ah, yes. Servant leadership. And Tamara, for you?
I think it revolves around caring about people enough to invest in them. That's care.
Mm, beautiful. Well said. Well, ladies, as we come to a close, one thing is very clear, that the challenge is not a lack of talent. We all know, we know people around us and how much talent there is around us. It's the lack of access, maybe alignment or intentional investment in people. And I think what we have done today here is open up a channel that is unique, and it's also profound, and it is something that we can use, like one of you said, is to bring more people on board, open up that conversation, and let that conversation at the end of the day turn into action. I want to say, from my point of view, it was an honor and a privilege to hear each and every one of you and your take on leadership and your take on mentorship. Thank you for what I'm taking away from what you have said today. And I hope that this is a platform that we are going to continue working on together and making sure that we have our duty and we do what we need to do for the rest of the people that are, we need to reach back, for the people that are coming behind us. I want to say thank you to everyone. Is there anybody that would like to say anything before we leave? All good. Right. Thank you
Just to say
so much,
thank you
ladies.
again. Just to say thank you
Yeah.
again for the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely so true. Thank you, ladies, and I hope you have a good weekend. And to everybody that listened to us today, please, if you've been inspired by this, reach out and let's make sure that we continue this going forward. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.